We're going to reanimate 2 trolls by turn 2, multiple Ultimate Crushers, and win in the air with tons of flyer. All thanks to Red Return, one of the most hyped cards from Commander Masters, and in today's video, I will show you 4 new decks that showcase its power, starting with Orzhov Reanimator, a deck that relies on cards like Graphine's Informant and Myers Triton to put cards into the graveyard, token makers to return our big creatures with Red Return, and 12 reanimation spells to add consistency to the deck. Let's find out how this one performs in our first match of the day. This hand is slow, but at worst, we just reanimate an Eagles of the North. Yeah, not a great plan, but we will see how it goes. We loot away the Red Return, as we have a Valve Switch in hand, meaning that along with Graphine's Informant, we can sacrifice and create 4 more flyers that will later be used to reanimate something big. We found a better target in the form of the Black Troll, so I cycle it for a land and use Exhume on it before combat to prevent them from returning the Jewel Thief into play. Unfortunately, they had an answer and removed our graveyard along the way, but we still got our Battle Screech as a way to generate board presence. They played a couple of creatures, and back in our turn, I found a Soul of Migration that can be used to create more flyers and cast the Battle Screech for its flashback cost. They used a boarding party, revealing another Elementalist that returned their cast down to their hand, so for now, the only thing we can do is chump block and use Journey to Nowhere on their bigger creature, and on our turn add a Myers Triton that can trade for the rest, but more importantly, this revealed a second Battle Screech that can be used to add more bodies to the field. They attack again, and I remember that cast down was on their hand, so multi-blocking is not an option now, so I went for the safer route. I attack with my flyers to start adding pressure in the air and return a Soul of Migration to the field. They play a creature, attack and pass, and now I decided to go for the not obvious play. Given the board state, reanimating an Eagles of the North can give me the win, so I decided to play a Luminous Phantom, attack with every flyer, use Exhume on the Myers Triton, and try to dig for the Eagles. Luckily, my opponent killed the Triton, which allowed me to sacrifice 3 flyers and return it back to the battlefield, gain more life, and now I do get the Eagles in the graveyard. From there, it was just a matter of doing the necessary blocks to survive, cast Exhume for the Eagles, and win the game. For our second game, I got the turn to troll combo, so I decided to keep this hand, but despite me having it, they also had an answer for it. Still, I used a Myers Triton that revealed a Prismatic Strands, which will be relevant later, and I passed the turn. They killed my creature, played theirs, and on my turn I got to reanimate the troll once more, but they also had an answer for it. A 3 reanimation piece showed up, and along came a full token, which is sweet to gain some life back. This time they were not able to kill it, and now I can loot away a land and use removal on one of their creatures to start adding pressures to the board. They passed the turn, and on mine, they tried removing my creature to prevent me from using the Dread Return on the Soul of Migration. Still, the Prismatic Strand that I revealed at the beginning was key to preventing this from happening, and after attacking with my creatures and reanimated the Soul of Migration, they decided to scoop. Our next deck relies on cards like Satyr Wayfinder and Eccentric Farmer to mill ourselves, and potentially mill some of the Dread creatures that will eventually mirror our Dread Return. And with enough creatures in the graveyard, we can one-shot kill anyone with LOL the Goliath. Or at least that's the plan. It may not be as pretty as returning 2 trolls by turn 2, but this deck is certainly very fun to play. Our second match is against Mono Red, and we keep a slow hand, but we do have ways to gain life thanks to Myers Triton and incidental food tokens of Generous End. Our main plan now is to survive and reanimate a creature with Red Return while we fetch the lands we need in order to accomplish that. Golgari Brown Scale on the graveyard is also a critical part for our plan, as it synergizes us very well with Red Return. I brought back a troll to start adding pressure to the board, but after one turn they managed to deal 8 damage with just 2 cards. I attack again, putting them to 8 life points, cast a second Lizard, and a Red Return to return a second troll in hopes of winning the game. They could not close the deal, and we move to game number 2. In game number 2, we have access to a turn 2 troll, but sadly, they had a turn 1 Tormod script that foils our plans, so we have to go for a different route. Also, not my pure cyber skills by adding a gate payoff in a deck with no gates. Anyways, Healer of the Glade will do a decent job at protecting our life totals. While they try to set up with an experimental synthesizer, my plan is to force them to use the crypt by casting Exhume and then refill our graveyard with Satyr Wayfinder. This burned to my face and eventually found a second crypt to stop my plans. However, not that I'm getting to a point where I can start casting the big hitters by paying their entire mana cost, so a Generous End will not only add pressure to the board, but also give me some precious life points back thanks to the token. They put me down to 5 life points, and I was able to return a land thanks to Eccentric Farmer, gain some life, and start adding pressure to them. They put me at 5 again, and I found a troll from the top of my library, meaning that if they takes this hit, the next turn they will be facing lethal. They could not find an answer out of Reckless Impulse and scooped. Taking creatures is the best way to use Exhume on turn 2 to get them into the battlefield, but also this deck runs Dread Return, which when paired with the tokens from Hunt for Specimens and Pest Summoning, can reanimate bigger creatures like Olamog Crusher, which can be protected with Counter Magic to secure the victory in a deck that loves sending things to the graveyard in multiple ways. In this game, I face Izzet Terror, with the newly added Critic Serpent. This hand does not have a reanimation spell, but it can cycle through my deck very smoothly, so it's just a matter of patience. Muddle the Mixture is a good way to do it for Exhume, but for now, I decided it was worth just adding small creatures to the board that eventually will be useful for Dread Return. They tap out for a Cryptic Serpent, and since I revealed 2 Exhumes thanks to Mental Note, I decided it was an excellent time to reanimate 2 Serpents I had in the graveyard. They resolve a Terror, and I was happy to trade both my creatures for theirs and hardcast a Troll. They added another Serpent to the board, but since it can't block the Troll, I got to deal some damage to them and loot away the Ulamog's Crusher with the Hunt for Specimens, in case I draw another reanimation spell. They used Lording Reveal and I tried to counter it, but they had a spell on their hand. The good news is that they are now low at life total and tap out, so I went for Lording's Reveal of my own, drew some cards and put them down to 4 and passed the turn. After this they flooded the board, but once again were tap out, allowing me to set up for a better turn, and thanks to Brainstorm, I can now cast Dread Return with Foil Bucket to return not 1 but 2 Ulamog Crushers to the battlefield. They could not find an answer to this and I won the game. For Cyber, we keep an okay hand with multiple cycle cards, but more importantly, a free counterspell that can be used to protect your Dread combo. Avalanche Archaeologist returns an Exhume and mill an Ulamog Crusher, meaning that on my next turn, I can return the letter to the battlefield on an empty board with counter backup. They untap, couldn't find an answer for it, and scoop the game. And now, it's the turn for the deck that can win in turn 1 by using multiple mana ramp spells to check big creatures into play, with multiple ways to send them to the graveyard and efficiently bring it back, possibly with haste. This revamped version is as good as it sounds, and I will show you why. What sets apart Rakdos Reanimator from the other decks is the crazy stars it may have. In this case, I was able to exhume a troll on turn 1 thanks to their ritual, but if that was not enough, I could also reanimate a second troll on turn 2, and by turn 3 my opponent was already dead. For Cyber, even with no lands, this deck can perform very consistently, as the cycle creatures serve as a land tutors, and thanks to the Simian Spirit Guide, I can put yet again a troll on the battlefield on turn 1. As far as this game goes, my opponent found an answer for the troll, but given how much mana this deck can have, I was able to hard cast a second troll right after they deal with the first, sealing the deal and the game against them. Now, if you are new to Pauper and want to test other cool decks, click into that playlist. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.